cover story. Recently, the Supreme Court has given a very significant judgment in the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi case, saying that a mosque is not integral to Islam. This, of course, has spurred all those in favor of the Ram Janmabhoomi and having a Ram temple at Ayodhya in their favor. Joining me in cover story is BJP leader and Rajya Sabha member Dr. Subramanian Swamy. He, as you know, also has an interest in the case. He's, of course, a firm advocate of the Ram temple. He's also filed a writ petition in the court. He's arguing, of course, that the case is not a case of property, but actually a case of fundamental right. So we're going to go and ask him about what his stand is on this case. First of all, welcome to this conversation. Dr. Swamy, can you explain the case you filed and also what the Ayodhya tangle is about? How significant is this judgment of the Supreme Court?
See, the Supreme Court had in 1994 consolidated all the cases which were in different sessions courts or the magistrates court and brought them to the Allahabad High Court. There were two different types of parties. There were many parties, but there were two different types of parties. But principally, for the Muslim community, the Sunni Waqf Board, and for the Hindu community, the Nirmohi Akhada and the Ram Janmabhoomi Nyaya Samiti. Now, the Ram Janmabhoomi Nyaya Samiti and Nirmohi Akhada both claimed that they had Ram Lala temple in Ayodhya. And therefore, it should be given back to them as trustees. The Sunni Waqf Board had said, not that we have our masjid. They don't talk about masjid at all in their petition. They say that Babur grabbed this land and by adverse possession, we have got the title to that. Of course, there is a small snafu in that because Mir Baqi, who actually captured the land, was a Shia. And all the mutwalis, that hereditary keepers of masjids, they have been Shias. Even today, the surviving member is a Shia. Okay. But the Sunni Waqf Board managed to grab it during the rise of Jinnah, the period of Jinnah, 1944, thereabout. And so since after that, they got manipulated a court, I think, and they got that they could also be title holders. So then they became aggressive and they moved this petition. Now the Allahabad High Court dismissed that claim of the Sunni Waqf Board. And against that they have come to the Supreme Court. Okay. The Nirmohi Akhada and the Ram Janmabhoomi Nyas, they don't like the ad hoc judgment of the Allahabad High Court that two of the gumbas can be given to the Hindus, with the middle one being where Ram was born, because that's where the faith says Ram was born. Okay. And the one may be given to the Muslim community, not to the Sunni Waqf Board, to Muslim community, so that there is harmony. So that the Hindus didn't like. They said, no, the whole thing has to be for Ram Mandir. So that's the appeal. And for 7.5 years, it was not being listed. So when Ashok Singhal was getting very sick, he called me and he said, you now take over from me. I said, you got a whole big organization and all that. He said, no, Ram Setu, everybody failed, but you succeeded. So I know you will succeed in this. So you take it over. So I tried to enter the matter and start saying, no, list it. So combined both sides, Hindus and Muslim parties, they said, who is he? He has no property.
Right.
Property
no right
issues.
To the,
So how does he come into the picture? That was the appeal stage. So therefore, I thought for some time and said, I will move a writ petition, separate writ petition, saying that my faith tells me Ram was born here. And therefore, I have a fundamental right under Article 25 to pray there. And all kinds of encumbrances are put there. I'm also threatened by the Sunni Waqf Board taking away the land. So therefore, please grant me my fundamental right to have a secure opportunity to pray and build a Ram temple for that purpose.
So you shifted the whole focus of the argument from a right to property and thereby edged all the other players out by making it a fundamental right.
But then the court, after hearing my argument, said, you have made such good arguments, why don't you make it in the main matter, that is the appeal matter. So I said, they don't let me enter. They say, you are nobody, you have no property. So then the court directed that the petition should be made as an intervening petition in that property matter. And that's how I came in. Then I went to court saying immediately give a date. And I must say, to the credit of Chief Justice Kehar, he was a very dynamic person. He broke all the protests. I mean, he disregarded all the protests from the other parties and listed it. So the first hearing, when they saw the other parties, there were two kinds of opposition I had. One I have not stated before, I'll state now. But the traditional was the Sunni Waqf Board lawyers, including this eccentric called Rajiv Dhawan. They began opposing my presence. So in order to push me out, they came up with this idea that if they also can say the masjid is my fundamental right to pray in Babri Masjid, then I would be in a deadlock.
So it's clash of two fundamental rights.
Fundamental rights. And then, of course, the court has the right to decide which to prevail. So there was only one problem. 1994, this matter had been raised, surprisingly, by Justice J.S. Mehta, who became Chief Justice. He had raised this issue, and then majority of the bench agreed that masjid is not an essential part of Islam. It can be broken, it can be shifted, which is the practice in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, everywhere. You can see that by going to Google. So to cut the matter short, the whole idea was to push me out. And therefore, they moved a motion that all intervening petitions will take time, so delete all of them. And surprisingly, our additional Solicitor General, Tushar Mehta, also supported it, which means that my party also didn't want me in. And that was confirmed by a direct meeting with Amit Shah, who told me, you get out of this. Even though I was the one who got the hearings done, everything. And of course, the RSS didn't agree with it, and Vishwendra Prashad couldn't agree because in their presence, in their own presence, in a press conference, Ashok Singhal had said, Swamy will look after this matter.
So there's a division between the BJP and the RSS on your role.
The problem was that the BJP wanted to do it themselves and keep me out.
They didn't want to share the credit.
Not share. They would get no credit at all. Because now...
But as of now, you're a loyal BJP member, so they would...
I am, of course. I predate Mr. Amit Shah, by the way. So nobody can say I am a loyal. I am the BJP. For some time, it went into, under certain people's influence, it went into Gandhian socialism. So I said, I will not come, as long as Gandhian and socialism, both words are used. Then it came back to Mandir, so then I came back. So anyway, the thing is that I was pushed out. But I could not be pushed out by dismissing my petition, because I told the Chief Justice that I did not come before you. I did not want to come before you. It is another bench which put me inside. You send it back to the same bench, which sent it to you. So the order says that we are not in a position to take up with this case, so we are sending it back to that bench. So now that's awaiting a date for hearing, which I'll get in very shortly.
But that judgment, that hearing will predate the final Ayodhya case. So if they agree that the fundamental right, then that case goes.
Yeah, absolutely. If I win, then that case becomes infructuous.
Because the fundamental right,
will prevail. Fundamental right shall prevail over ordinary property right.
So then whose land it goes, whose mosque was built first, whose temple was built first?
There is already Allahabad High Court that the land belongs to the Hindus. And Narasimha Rao has, my friend, and I was his minister too. I had a minister rank position in his government. He filed an affidavit. And by the way, he has written me a long, glowing letter of the contribution I made to clarify his mind on the Ram Mandir thing. One day I'll release it.
Actually, a side question is, when are you writing your memoirs? I'm waiting for that.
That'll take time. A lot of careers will be ruined if I write a truthful. Anyway, the Narasimha Rao had said, if it is established that there was a pre-existing temple, he didn't say demolished temple, pre-existing temple, whether it was in ruins when the masjid was built on, or that's another issue, then we will give this land to the Hindus to build a temple.
Narasimha Rao has written a letter.
Affidavit to the 5-judge bench, constitutional bench of 1994. And they have reported it in the judgment.
So how valid is that affidavit, considering
It's
the
an
Prime
affidavit
Ministers have
which the
changed?
court asked him to file.
So a Prime Minister
He said,
of India
what is
has
the
given.
government's solution? So he filed it. So they are committed.
That affidavit is binding on the current Prime Minister also?
Actually, it is an affidavit on behalf of the government.
Right.
He has to file another affidavit.
Saying no, which he will not.
Like Congress had to do in my Ram Setu case when they first said it's mythical, and then there was protest. They apologized and filed another affidavit. But this affidavit was then converted into action by the Supreme Court by asking the Allahabad High Court to order an inquiry. Allahabad High Court asked the Archaeological Survey of India, 2 great archaeologists, B.B. Lal, Dr. B.B. Lal, and Dr. K.K. Mohammed. Both of them unanimously gave the report after doing scientific analysis like satellite imaging, digging up the place. They are looking at the half-life of dead bodies, etc. All that they put together, and unanimously the 2 of them said there exists a large Vaishnav temple under there. Where the masjid stood. So even by that, the government is committed.
So it's not just faith, but you're saying that you also have empirical
Government
evidence.
commitment. So now I have to argue this. I'll argue it, and I've been benefited by advice from lawyers like Tulsi, KTS Tulsi, who was at the time when I was Minister of Law, and he was the Additional Solicitor General. We actually got a Nataraj statue back from and prevented an auction in London of a stolen, smuggled Nataraj on the grounds that a temple once built, according to Prana Pratishtha Puja, can never be not a temple. Even if it is raised to the ground, even if it is under lock and key, this is the Privy Council's, that is the House of Lords judgment.
This is what you are also using to argue those who say that if a mosque is not integral to Islam, then is a temple integral to your faith?
Yes, and it has been established. And we have got in addition to what we know in our own spiritual literature, we've got a judgment, namely that of the House of Lords, where India government was a party. Whether foreign judgments apply or not will be a question, but here the government of India was a party.
Can you tell me a bit more about Narasimha Rao's time? I know there was a lot of back-channel conversations also happening with various Muslim groups where you had made a case that if you give us the Ayodhya temple, the Kashi Vishwanath temple, the Mathura, then you will,
the remaining 40,000 we won't touch.
You won't. That had gone to a pretty... we were in fact told that a conclusion was being arrived at.
2 things are there in the white paper, which if we now, the Muslims, many of them admit, for example, Kamal Furuki, he is the chairman of the Personal Law Board, or was chairman, he is a distinguished intellectual of the Muslim community.
Right.
He says that if you can show that there was a pre-existing temple, it's forbidden in Quran itself to have a masjid on top of it. And Shahabuddin was the chairman of...
He's making your case then.
Yeah, he said so. He said, I'm doing it, but who has proved it to me? That's what his escape clause was. But Shahabuddin was the chairman of the Babri Masjid Action Committee. And I was law minister. And Chandrasekhar, all 3 were great friends. And Shahabuddin was also general secretary of the Janata Party. And so he told me, tum dono baith karke faisla karo. That is, you two sit together and decide. And so we produced a common thing that if we can prove there was a previous temple, Shahabuddin said, we will give up the claim to Babri Masjid. That has been proved now. In 2006, it was submitted to the Allahabad High Court, this report, and the Allahabad High Court accepted this report. Nobody has challenged it.
So do you see a conclusion coming before?
Yeah, after this refusal to reopen that question, I think as soon as my date is given, mine will be over in 1 month.
That fast?
Because the only other parties are the government of India and the government of Uttar Pradesh. Because this is my fundamental rights. You can't have Muslims deciding whether I have fundamental rights or not.
And their fundamental right has just been...
They have no fundamental right.
Which the court has...
And what will they come on? What will they intervene for?
Okay, we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back and also talk to Dr. Swamy about a recent address made by the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat. Is the RSS trying to redefine itself? What is his take on that? So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Cover Story. We are in conversation with BJP leader Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Dr. Swamy, before the break we were talking about Ayodhya, but now I want to bring to you a related topic. Recently, Mohan Bhagwat was in the capital. He met a lot of people that you would say the Lutyens liberals. Why is he reaching out to a section which you are so disparaging about?
Yeah, that he has hope that they will see the logic of his argument and come across. And I think no harm trying. Shri Ravi Shankar tried to bring parties together on the Ram temple also.
Correct.
He got nowhere. I mean, he certainly made everybody assemble. That much stature he has. He's a man of, he's a great man. I mean, he's a learned man, good man. And I fully backed him in his effort. But I told him also, you have no chance to bring a settlement. Mohan Bhagwat now feels that the country has now, the younger generation particularly, this is my interpolation, okay? He hasn't told me anything specifically, so I'm not quoting him. But he thinks that the younger generation is now convinced that nationalism and the elements of Hindutva, these are all important parts which we should have, and they are now demanding learning Sanskrit, and they want the correct history of India. So all these basic agenda items have now been accepted by the younger generation. So he thinks that for harmony, we must see whether the other side, which has been opposed to us, some of them may have been gone to the other side on the wrong feeding of history and facts and this newspaper campaigns, etc. So he reached out to them, and surprisingly, there are two types of people who will definitely come. One who will see what the wind is, where it's blowing. They will come anyway. But there are some people who can come. I have found in my own life, I'm in a family where all religions are represented, and nobody thinks I'm communal, but you ask these Lutyen types, they'll say, oh, he's a flaming communalist, you see.
I wonder why.
So I think it's a very good approach. And I was there in all 3 days, and he was terrific. I think his classic answer, which I think explains your question, answers your question. He was asked this question that if you say Hinduism believes that all religions lead to God, then why you are objecting to conversion?
Yes.
So he said, if all religions lead to God, why convert at all? Where you are, you can follow God. There's no answer for that. It was a superb answer, you see. So, of course, the whole audience clapped. The most thunderous claps he got for this answer.
But he also got clapped for another answer where he says a Hindu Rashtra cannot be without Muslims also. He wanted to include...
We accept Muslims as their ancestors are Hindus. So.
The DNA is Hindu. This is your... In fact, I was reminded of you when he said he was making the same case.
We are one people. And
if you are one people, then why have an RSS whose function was to have a Sambhur
because the Hindus have been fed garbage by the British, and it's been recycled by people like Ramila Thapar and all. We want to...
Then it's not an inclusive faith.
No,
if you are saying
no.
that there are people...
No, listen,
He even says that one of his best friend was a communist leader. In fact, when that
we have no problem. I'm a great friend of China.
That's true.
The most anti-communist person in this country.
What about Indian communists? Why are you going to a Chinese communist?
Chinese, Indian communists, they all targeted me when I was a professor, wouldn't let me teach, threw me out. They were always against me. So, and even today, if I go to JNU, they will come and howl and scream. So, in India, that's class struggle or idea struggle, whatever. I'm only saying this, that there are certain basic facts which have to be understood. If you read the Indian Independence Act, what did the British Parliament say in its debates? That the idea is to create a Muslim-ruled Pakistan and a Hindu-ruled India. Immediately Ambedkar said, let's have population exchange then.
Right.
It was Jawaharlal Nehru and others who said, no, those Muslims who don't want to leave, they can stay. Now, the problem with our Muslims was that they know that the dominant Muslim group in Pakistan was something that looks down upon the Indian Muslims. And in fact, I can tell you, the Arabs, when Indians go to Hajj, Indian Muslims go to Hajj, they treat them very badly. So therefore, many of them decide to stay. But I am only saying this, that the idea of the British, to which we agreed, we should not have agreed, but we agreed, was that we'll create a Hindu-ruled Pakistan, Hindu-ruled India. And the Muslims will rule Pakistan. Now, that didn't happen. So there is this unresolved question, where do Muslims fit into our society? It's an important question. Why? Because 600 years of struggle. It is the Hindus who struggled against the Muslim rulers. We had hardly any Muslim representation in our struggle, whether it was the Vijayanagara Empire, whether it was Shivaji, whether it was Rana Pratap, or whether it was Ahom dynasty in Assam, or Guru Gobind Singh. The Muslims were against us, by and large. And even during the freedom struggle, a very small fraction of the Muslims came over to us. And when Jinnah came, many of them went, even those who stayed behind. Actually, there was a poll in 1946 which they voted overwhelmingly for Pakistan. Rohingyas, for example, they in 1944 said Jinnah is our leader. And when the Constituent Assembly of Burma met, their two representatives said, we want to be part of Pakistan, we don't want to be part of Burma. So therefore, this has to be resolved. And the only way I can think of it as resolution is the scientific truth, that we are both descended from the same parents. And if they accept that, there's no problem.
But also, what I found very interesting is the fact that he reached out to the Congress. He talked about the Congress role in the freedom struggle.
The best way to disintegrate Congress is to invite the congressmen to join. And we have, a lot of congressmen have joined. One of our deputy chief ministers from Congress in Assam. We have now got one of their
you had Pranab Mukherjee coming over to the RSS.
Pranab Mukherjee, welcome anytime.
But the fact that he was quoting President Kalam, the fact that he invited, is the RSS also trying to open up a bit more?
We want to retain our core, that this is one country, it's an unbroken civilization, that it is predominantly a Hindu culture country, with a tradition that we have never interfered in other people's religion, whether it's the Parsis, the Jews, or the Syrian Christians. And we can also not interfere in Islam, provided Islamic traditions are contradictory to ours. We are talking about traditions. As far as you want to pray to Allah, there's no problem. You want to build a masjid, no problem. But if you want to dress like the Arabs, you want to put your women in burqa, you want to have 4 wives, you want to terminate the marriage by triple talaq, I'm sorry, we can't agree to that.
Okay, as much as I would like to continue this conversation, we are out of time, so we'll hope to meet you again and carry on with another conversation. But thank you for talking to us. Okay. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to Dr. Swamy, but I'm afraid we've totally run out of time, so that's it for now. Thank you for watching this show, and we'll see you again same time next week.